to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports. The worlds of gaming and esports are evolving every day faster than ever before. With YouGov's living data, you can probe into the real thoughts and behaviors of esports fans and gamers worldwide. If you're a team, a brand, an agency, or a rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. They're partners with the biggest names in esports and the biggest brands all around the world, driving compelling results every single day. Check out yougov.com/BOE and schedule a call with YouGov today.
From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post podcast live stream. I am Paul the Prophet Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta, Lindsay the Boss Poss, Jeff the Juice Cohen. For those of you who are new here, welcome. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. And with the weekly news show, best of all, we get to do it live with you guys. You get to get in our faces, ask questions, challenge us. We encourage it, get involved, leave comments. It's a safe space. You can ask anything you want. But if you want to lurk, that's okay too. We still appreciate all of you being here. How are you guys doing this week? Lindsay, let's start with you.
Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be joining you from Costa Rica. Which it's great. It's a beautiful country, but the hotel Wi-Fi
Okay, maybe I
is a
shouldn't
little
have called on Lindsay first. We're working through hotel Wi-Fi issues. Jimmy,
Lindsay,
Jeff, how are you guys doing?
We can't see you, Lindsay. Turn on your camera.
No, that's not.
No, I'm good. Very good. Jimmy, you ready? Isn't your wedding coming up? Is it this
coming
weekend?
up? It's this weekend.
Wow.
I'm getting ready. I missed the show last week, and I'm sorry for that, guys. We had one of our last taste testings, and then right after was a dance lesson. It's just been busy getting ready, with all the.
You're looking
stuff.
fit. Have you lost a bunch of weight?
Thank you. I lost a ton of weight. Yeah, I've did this fasting diet developed by the USC Longevity Institute, so it's legit. My brother-in-law actually recommended it to me, and it's just been one of those things. So I appreciate you calling that out. Thank you.
Now it's just us in the podcast talking about diets, so this is weird.
I mean, it's what the people wanted, This is crazy. For those of you watching live, I don't think we've ever been left at the helm, Jeff. This is like a first for us.
We're going to change this topics now to Bulldogs. So,
from the keyboard to the kennel.
Does Kerwin have a role in the wedding?
Kerwin does not. I'm going to drop him off at the place where he gets groomed. They have an overnight kennel kind of thing, and that'll be for the best because he's a good boy. But I think with that many people, it'd get a little too excited. Yeah. This is crazy. I guess without Paul here, I don't even know what we talk about. There's a lot of news going on this week. Big week for esports news.
It's always a big week for esports news. Unfortunately, Paul doesn't share the topics with us ahead of time, so we just have to chit chat.
Hey, sorry.
We took over, Paul. This is now a Bulldog channel.
Paul's like, we'll have to edit that out of the VOD.
Well, for those that are listening, they have no idea. They just think you and I just started talking about Bulldogs and didn't see Paul drop off stream for a minute.
I'm so sorry, guys. I am also streaming from a hotel room, and so we do have lots of news this week to cover, which I'm going to get to. Just let me tease the podcast. We had Andy Ochiltree on the podcast this week. He's the VP of Gaming at SubNation. They're the agency of record for PUBG esports in North America. They're also creating their own esports league. So lots of interesting stuff there. I think most interesting of all, he used to be at Overwatch League. So he was at Activision Blizzard. And before that, he was at Hasbro, Mattel, and a bunch of other non-gaming or gaming adjacent companies, if you want to call it that. And so interesting background, super interesting conversation. Definitely look forward to that episode this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Guys, I want to start with a bit of a softball here. Maybe a bit of a softball. And that is Diablo Immortal, which, is in the news. And I think, Jimmy and we touched on it a little bit on the podcast, but it's definitely worth a bit of a longer conversation here. So let me, I hope this doesn't break my connection again, but let me share my screen here. And the headline here is Diablo Immortal microtransactions have sparked a brutal backlash. This is from PCGamer.com. The aggressive push to sell in-game items is not going over well on Reddit or Metacritic. It has a 0.6 score on Metacritic across 1,700 user reviews, just to be clear, and which is extremely low, basically zero. And I think much of the criticism is really about feeling like the game is pay to win. So to advance, to get the best gear, you can pay for all of this. You can still play the game without paying. Blizzard has reiterated many times that you can play all the content without ever spending a penny. But if you want the best gear, you want to play all the content faster, you want to get through the different raids essentially faster, dungeons faster, you need the best gear, and basically you need to pay for it. So what do you guys think? Has anyone actually played any Diablo Immortal?
I've been playing
since it came
quite
out
a bit. Been playing probably. I wouldn't imagine, Jeff, have you been playing at all or no? Yeah.
No.
So I've played quite a bit. It's easy, in bed to play on mobile for 20, 30 minutes before going to sleep, or if I have something on the TV and I want a additional distraction from my distraction. I don't get what the fuss is about. It's a easy enough and fun enough game. It's the typical Diablo story and lore and kind of feel to it. I had mentioned on the podcast, no spoilers here, but I mentioned there as well in our intro that I'd played it and kind of enjoyed it. This is just a lot of people getting all up in arms over nothing. Microtransactions are nothing new. Top tier, or having exclusive loot is nothing new. Now, if you can't get comparable gear that you earn, that's a different story, because there's always those divisions between people that earned their awesome skins, their awesome, legendary gear or what have you, versus ones that bought very cool ones, but you can recognize that's a paid item because that's what it is. It only looks like that. But I think that, I had some other friends too that I played with that were like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to end up playing this much longer because I just read that it costs $100,000 to fully max out for endgame. And I did a little research and I said, no, you can have a good time and not spend a penny. This is nothing new. This is how they monetize. And there might be some cool stuff that you might want to, it's a free game. So you're essentially saving however many dollars. You might want to spend some of that to make your guy look cool if you get bored with the appearance of your character after a while. So it's really inflammatory when it doesn't need to be. And I'm not the biggest Diablo fan either. And I was actually pretty pleased with it. So take that for what it's worth, I guess.
It's a free game, and you all have phones, right? Jeff, what are your thoughts on this?
It's so predictable. I mean, we knew that this was going to be the take. Even if they basically put no monetization in it at all, this was going to be the take from, the people who put out these outrage takes and the people who get on Reddit and just want to be angry about things. To Jimmy's point, it's a free game. You can play it entirely free. You could play all the content free. So this is the business model of mobile. I mean, mobile games have this deep kind of like spend depth that you can spend. I remember when I covered Glue Mobile as an analyst, the CEO told me one time in a meeting that they had their highest spend player in their MLB Tap Sports baseball game spent $370,000 one year, which is insane in a mobile baseball game. But you know what? This guy I guess he was like the CEO of some biopharma company or something like that. And he just really liked the game. And that was like his hobby. And he just it wasn't like predatory. I think he just really enjoyed, leading his guild or whatnot. So that is the business model of mobile, right? Very few people pay. And then there are some whales that are happy and willing to pay, a ton of money. So I don't really view it as a problem. When you get into the slot machine mechanics and a bit more of like the gotcha mechanics, like where it can create like habitual, addictive tendencies, that's where it gets a little bit more, I guess, shady in my mind. But, I don't necessarily think that's really the case here with Diablo Immortal. And then the last thing I'll say is I always find it stupid when you see articles where it's like, well, if you wanted to buy every single thing in the game, it's going to cost you $100,000. It's like, well, that's like saying like, well, I don't like Walmart because if I walk into a Walmart and buy one of every item, like it's going to cost me a lot of money. It's not really analogous, right? Or saying I'm going to go to a baseball game and I'm so mad at the baseball team because if I wanted to buy one of every jersey in the fan store, one of every piece of food, and like one of everything I could buy, like it's going to cost a lot of money. It's not really the point of the entertainment product to buy everything in the game per se.
Lindsay, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this.
I mean, I am a mobile gamer, so I am definitely the wrong person to ask about the outrage on this. And I think Jimmy and Jeff kind of covered all the points there. So it is predictable, but I don't think it's warranted.
I mean, I think you guys are all horribly wrong. I mean, this is the kind of outrage that needs to happen, and I frankly think it's not happening enough because this is the slippery slope I talked about literally years ago on this podcast, and it's coming to fruition, and it's not good for gaming. It's not good for gamers. It's not good for anyone really. Like the cheapening a game by making it pay to win, which is what Diablo Immortal is. This is pay to win, pure and simple. You want to do better, you can pay to do better. It's not you want to look a little bit cooler, you can pay for a cosmetic. That's not what this is. This is pay to win. You can the best gear, this gems, whatever, like the best gear you can get in the game are all behind paywalls, not easily obtainable in game. It takes 100 times the amount of time in game played casually versus paying for it. And I've heard some reasonable takes saying, maybe the delta between the pay to win and the free to play is too big here. And that's part of the problem, right? Like the free to play, if it takes you 5 times longer than the pay to win guy, maybe that's acceptable, but 100 times longer feels abusive. And so, maybe there's an easy solution like that. I don't know. I personally hold Blizzard to a higher standard, and I think we have to. Blizzard, since the early 2000s, has always made the best games. That's just their DNA as a company. They made the best games. Diablo Immortal is a stain on that record. I think it's shameful. I think it's awful for gaming. And I think the outrage is justified here. And the outrage to me has to destroy this game. I think if Blizzard makes money on this game, we will be worse off as an industry now. I think it will make money because it's been designed to make money and designed to lure players in and get them to spend money. And we've seen games like this be successful very recently. Lost Ark, people pouring tons of money into this same pay-to-win mechanics. Genshin Impact, people pouring tons of money into this same pay-to-win mechanics. And all the effort that went into Diablo Immortal could have gone into Diablo 4 in my mind and built an actually good game. I see the it's like when people see looting in the streets and you go, this is civilization coming to an end, right? Like it's sort of one of these signs that proper gaming is coming to an end.
Wow, that's definitely not extreme.
Nah. Robert, hello, welcome. Chris says, Stephen A. Dawalibi over here, we forget about Diablo 3 Auction House. Immortal isn't that bad. But like, guys, I mean, and feel free to disagree, but the apologists are the worst part of this. Like, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Like, But this is the slippery slope we end up on, right? If everything's not that bad, it gets like incrementally worse and worse over time. Every game's a little bit worse than the last, I mean. And every time we just apologize for it, it's not that bad. I mean, why can't we demand more from the games we play and spend money on? I don't know.
I mean, would it be better if they made it a paid game and made it like it costs $75?
If it was a $75 experience, sure, and there were no pay-to-win mechanics, I think that's absolutely better. Or free-to-play, and the only mechanics are like the only paid mechanics are cosmetic. That to me is acceptable also. But the pay-to-win mechanics to me has always been a bridge too far. I don't know. And guys in chat, I mean, Chris, clearly you disagree. I don't know, Robert, if
the
you
game
disagree,
is mostly PvE, right? Or is it PvP?
mostly PvE.
PvE.
So why does it matter? So why does it necessarily matter that it's pay to win? Like the way I view that is the game is if you don't want to pay, it's just going to take you longer to beat the game, which is fine because if you enjoy the game, you're just playing it for longer. If you don't enjoy the game, well, you should stop playing it because you're not enjoying it. And if you want to win faster, then pay. And if you don't want to pay because you either can't afford it or don't want to pay, then either keep playing the game or don't keep playing the game. Like, I don't know this tendency to be like, I need to go on Reddit and complain about this free product that wants me to keep playing it for longer or pay to play shorter. It's like, well, here's the third option. Just don't play it and don't go on Reddit and complain about it. Like, there is a third option here.
I agree. And I think the third option is what most gamers should choose and send a clear message that this is not the kind of game people want. I don't know.
Fair.
But I agree. There is a third option.
With your dollars.
Absolutely. That I totally agree with. All right, guys, let's move on here. We have lots of news to get through. And I want to talk about, hold on, sorry. Gotta share my screen here. What is this? Let's talk about Paris Overwatch League and Call of Duty League teams, because I thought this was interesting. And the
I thought you were going
headline
to say
here,
Paris Hilton, and I was a lot more excited.
I'm sorry to disappoint Lindsay.
Lindsay from the pool.
But this is the first I had seen this, maybe the second time I've seen this, I think, to my knowledge. And I thought it was interesting. The headline here, Paris Overwatch League and Call of Duty League teams announce pending moves to Las Vegas. So pretty self-explanatory in the title. Starting in 2023, the Paris franchises for Overwatch League and Call of Duty League, which are owned by PM Esports, they're relocating to Nevada, to Las Vegas. So the Paris Legion and the Paris Eternal are all going to be are now going to be the Vegas Legion and Vegas Eternal. Now, the Legion are last place in the Call of Duty League, and the Eternal are tied for last place right now in the Overwatch League. What do we make, guys? So we've talked. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of the viability of city-based, leagues, but what do we make of seeing some of these franchises now changing cities, and what do we think the reasoning might be behind that? Like, ownership isn't changing here. At least that's not mentioned at all in the article, so I assume it's not changing. Why change cities? What do we think they benefit here, or how do we think they benefit here?
I mean, teams change cities in other leagues all the time, so that part of it doesn't like outrage or sort of like shock me. I wonder if I guess there's two scenarios that it could be. One, it's they never really clicked in Paris and they want to move to Las Vegas to get sort of a fresh start to try to build the brand and kind of build the local community, which I think is actually probably not a terrible idea. I mean, Las Vegas has a pretty good esports culture. You already have the esports stadium there. So, maybe they can kind of build something with that. The second potential scenario, which I think would be a little bit more dire and frankly kind of embarrassing, is if they're moving from Paris just to save costs on like flights back and forth to the US. Like, it might just be the league trying to cut costs. Like, it is not cheap to run a like multi-continent league, particularly with different time zones. You have fans. Like, how are you going to watch a live game if you're in Paris and the game starts at 8:00 at night here? Like, there are just logistical things that make it there's a reason why there's almost no sports leagues that are truly global, because sports are made to watch live, and that doesn't work across the globe. So it might just be that, or it might just be a cost-cutting thing, which would be pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, Jeff gets one job headquartered in France, and suddenly he's a Parisian logistics expert.
And Lindsay, do you have a better idea on why they would move? And do you think this changes anything? Do we see more of these teams moving? Like mobility between cities, to Jeff's point, happens a lot in traditional sports. Will we see it more in esports?
I have a slightly different take. If they were moving to a different US-based city, I wouldn't think much of it. But I think that a lot of teams are struggling to monetize, and one of the best ways to monetize is through wagering. And what better city to introduce wagering than in Las Vegas? So I think that there is a potential that more and more teams are looking for wagering-based options as a way to like kind of not only improve fan engagement, but to actually monetize. And particularly in Overwatch League, where they're struggling with that and sponsors are pulling out, it may just make more sense to move to a city where that's easier. If they were moving to another city, I would think it was more strategic or more of a kind of similar thing to professional sports, where they move cities based on fan engagement or whatever. But I would wager that this has to do a lot with betting and kind of the not hostile but not as rich environment in Paris for those kinds of activities.
Super interesting thought. Did not even think of the betting angle. That's really interesting. Adam, by the way, says happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, Adam. Great to have you here. Was not a podcast till you got here. Jimmy, does this mean that there's not an audience for Call of Duty League or Overwatch League in Europe? Like, is this too big of a conclusion that maybe this is not the best market for those franchises, for this IP?
That was my line of thinking, but I think you kind of phrase it in a bolder way than I would have. I just think for these leagues in particular, Jeff's comment perhaps about costs and allocating resources as well as timing and scheduling seem to be important. But what I and I love Lindsay's insight too about betting. But what I thought was, well, maybe Paris wasn't a good fit for them. But then again, you're looking at this league that seems to be, and I know you didn't want to get into the geographic kind of conversation, but they wrongly assume that geography has a big part of fan bases and creating followings, and they think that they can create that fan base easier in Las Vegas. Now, I'm a huge proponent of Vegas having a major team of every sport. I think Vegas needs to have one. It's just that type of place. But to think that they're going to have any more success in Las Vegas than they did in Paris is not going to be the case unless there are other mechanisms at play, such as gambling sponsors and partners, like to Lindsay's point, and a cheaper cost by participating, to Jeff's point. So I think that those are going to help solve the problem, but those aren't addressing the root of the problem, which is they're still approaching this as we need to tackle our city and our local fans and create this fan base of people because we're geographically located there, not because they like us for our wacky streamers or what one of the number of reasons that people choose to follow esports brands that transcend geographic barriers. So I think it's just that they didn't have success in Paris, and that they're hoping to find better success in a younger city, a more perhaps this is an American-centric thing. I just don't think they're going to find that success unless they address the root of the problem.
It's a good point. Adam says Paris Legion has been the bottom of the CDL each year. Tough to build a fan base with new branding and losing teams. This is true. I mean, it feels like a little bit of a Band-Aid, right? Like maybe that'll fix things if we just move the city. Chris says there will be more interest in Wayne Gretzky's lacrosse team than the Overwatch League CDL team here in Vegas. They came here to save on state taxes. I mean, if that's actually the reason, that's incredibly disappointing, right? If it's really just about saving on taxes, that would be incredibly disappointing. But does anyone feel like these teams are all just ignoring like fixing the actual problems, and it's all just trying random things? Like we've seen Anbox, like total failed organization, attempt a rebrand to a brand that had already failed. Like there seems to be no effort or minimal effort to try and fix the problems, and just like, you know, these token moves hoping something different will happen. I personally don't think moving either of these franchises from Paris to Las Vegas is going to make any difference. And if anything, it feels like Paris is a less competitive esports town. Like they're more likely to build a fan base there, I would think.
Does Vegas have any other esports teams?
I mean, one theory I had, this is real tinfoil hat, and I don't have my button, but like, could it be that the parent org of these two teams, which has money, right, that's backed by a wealthy individual or ultra high net worth individual, maybe they're buying allied esports assets, and you know, they move into the stadium there. I don't know. Tinfoil hat theory.
An attractive property that works with traditional sports, right? When they have a stadium to go to. And to Jeff's question real quick, they have the Las Vegas Inferno and Dark Zero esports are both located there.
Yeah,
I might be missing one or two, but I know of those two. Oh yeah, Chris got it too. Thank you, Chris.
Chris is our Vegas guy. I knew he was going to answer that.
Chris says, all kidding aside, would be cool to see TSM FTX pick up the teams. I mean, don't you think they would sell them before they move them instead of moving them then sell them? Chris says, not that tinfoil. That spot is definitely up for sale. Absolutely. I mean, Allied has said publicly they want to sell off the esports assets. Maybe that's the sort of the two pieces they're trying to put together, and that maybe makes sense, right? Because now you have a place to do watch parties and homestands and, you know, all kinds of regular events around the teams. Maybe that works.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I don't think it's going to save the team or save the league or anything like that, but I think it makes sense to have a team in Vegas. Doesn't make a ton of sense to have a team in Europe. Like I don't know.
It's a
very US focused league.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's talk about Disney. Disney in the news. Disney hires, this is from Variety, Disney hires Apple Games exec Mark Bozon to head Metaverse creative strategy. So Disney hired Mark Bozon, a top gaming executive from Apple, as a senior creative leader for its cross-divisional next-generation storytelling initiative. That's all in capitals, which encompasses Disney's Metaverse ambitions. So Bozon was at Apple for 12 years. He tweeted that he was heading to his absolute dream job. He was the creative director for Apple Arcade, which is Apple's game subscription service. And he's going to be working for Disney's SVP of next generation storytelling and consumer experiences. So Disney plucking a gaming executive from Apple. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is I'm curious what you guys think of, you know, we don't often put Apple at the top of the gaming sort of pyramid, and Disney, who could, I would assume, get anyone they wanted. Is anyone surprised they hired from Apple instead of from an EA or an Activision Blizzard or from any of these other companies where you may have much deeper gaming talent? And I don't want to take anything away from Mark Bozon or Apple Arcade or anything like that, but it's not sort of one of the typical suspects. Anyone have thoughts on this hire and the direction Disney's maybe thinking of going with this?
I could have sworn Disney hired like a metaverse guy, because remember we talked about Disney, like, because I remember my take was like, well, Disney needs to get into gaming, like why are they focused on metaverse? Like, so I guess that's my take again. I don't know how this metaverse guy is different than the last metaverse guy, but they should really acquire EA or someone to. So
it was Mike. They hired Mike White, who hired Mark Bozon, right?
Yeah,
so that's the hire you were talking about.
Yes, that's
but
exactly
Mike
right.
White didn't come from Apple, and I thought that was maybe the interesting twist.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily given I don't know this guy Mark Bozon's background, it's hard to comment. Obviously, clearly he's done pretty well to be a senior executive at Apple and now senior executive at Disney. So far be it me to comment on his background or anything like that. But I think your point is an interesting one where maybe we underrate how big Apple is in games. It's largely more on the distribution side, but I think, they are probably by revenue the largest gaming company out there if you want to include the App Store revenue, which I don't necessarily think you should, but I see it included in a lot of like Newzoo charts and stuff like that. Apple Arcade is interesting. I mean, I would say, from external perspective, I don't know that it's a project that's done super well, but I bet the numbers are quite good just because it's Apple and they seem to do well with, just everything given their scale. But yeah.
So just a point of clarification, it says Bozon, before joining Apple in 2010, he worked as a freelance game designer and producer and was IGN's Nintendo editor. So has gaming chops for sure. Can I just take a different lens on this? And for Lindsay or for Jimmy, whoever wants to comment, does this Apple is if not one of the richest company on the planet, right, in terms of cash reserves? You would assume they have the ability to retain any kind of talent they want. Can we assume from this that maybe their gaming ambitions aren't that great? We've talked about them potentially buying EA, or at least that was my sort of preference. But letting a guy like this go, a senior gaming guy who's been with the company 12 years, can we conclude that maybe Apple doesn't have great gaming or metaverse ambitions, or is that too far of a stretch?
They haven't shown any inclination. We keep wondering who's going to buy EA. We thought Apple was a good fit. Apple is slow to move. And let me take that back, because we do have the VR headset, right, that they're coming out with. And that's a pretty significant move. Which has been
delayed. And we don't know when it's coming out.
But they're still doing it, or they're still looking at it. Supply chain issues are something that I think we all understand because of COVID. I think a lot of people might use that still as an excuse when it might not be for other reasons, but at least it's an accepted and understandable thing. But regardless, Apple's getting into the metaverse and into virtual games with that headset. And to the points that you guys made earlier, the arcade is pretty massive. They do have a pretty loyal mobile following and Apple Arcade following on Apple TVs. It's just, I think for us that are seriously true gamers, hardcore gamers, people that grew up with controllers in hand, people that grew up on mouse and keyboard, we just, for whatever reason, don't take Apple gaming all that seriously because it's more for that passive crowd. So it's hard for me to accept the hire, because if it was not for qualification or for personal reasons, but just because of the name, which again, very well-known brand, tons of synergy between Apple and Disney. But if this was a hire from an Activision Blizzard or somewhere else of that caliber, it would be the kind of thing that we would say, okay, this is great. It makes a lot of sense. But then here, Paul, you're diving into like the IGN and the Nintendo stuff, and they're kind of selling me more on them. Nothing against the guy, nothing against the hire, but it wasn't where my mind would have first went if you told me that Disney was hiring someone for this role. Apple would not be on my top 10 list of companies that I would have looked at or would have guessed for where that person would have been from. And I think that's what I'm trying to reconcile here. It's not the story or the excitement or whether or not they'll succeed. It was just, oh, that's really not what I had expected or yeah.
Lindsay?
Yeah. I disagree with that a little, only because I think that Disney is more likely to go after the kind of casual player. And I don't know much about what Apple does, but something like an Apple Arcade, especially something like that geared towards kids based on a lot of the IP that Disney already has, seems like it would be pretty compelling from Disney's standpoint. So I could definitely see what you're saying, Jimmy, but this makes sense. I mean, this is the same thing like Netflix is doing, right? Like, this is dipping a toe into the casual gaming market rather than full-fledged going in and buying a AAA publisher. Do I necessarily think that that's the right move for Disney? I don't think so. But given this guy's enthusiasm and how seriously he takes his role, and the fact that I don't have a great grasp on Apple Arcade's numbers or how popular it is with a casual audience. There might be like a real selling point to that story for Disney and to get those more casual gamers.
Yeah, this makes me a little bit more concerned for Apple's sort of place in the gaming world. I think more than anything. I'm not questioning Disney's hire, really, right? They're getting a guy who has a ton of experience and comes from a blue chip company. Like, that's an easy hire to defend. It's more Apple letting the guy go to Disney. Makes me wonder what Apple's ambitions or lack of ambitions really are. Astrophel says, why dead video? Astrophel, I think Lindsay's in a hotel room, which is why you can't see her. And says, what's this about? We were talking about Disney hiring an gaming executive from Apple. Hardware Barbecue says, an apple a day keeps the games away. I mean, it's unfortunate because I continue to say they could be a great gaming platform. And in fact, I will have a one quick more Apple and gaming story coming up, but I want to do this one first, guys. And this is a series of stories. And let's talk about them sort of all together. So I'm going to present a few stories all together here. And the first is Saudi Arabia's PIF acquires $1 billion stake in Sweden's Embracer Gaming Group. So Savvy Gaming Group, which is a unit of the kingdom's sovereign wealth fund, continues to invest in the games and esports industry. They acquired an 8.1% stake worth $1 billion in Swedish gaming business Embracer Group. Embracer Group owns a bunch of gaming publishers for the most part. They also, as we have previously discussed on the podcast, acquired, this is PIF, the Saudi Sovereign Investment Fund, a 5% stake in Nintendo. They bought ESL Gaming. They bought Faceit. So another $1 billion investment from the Savvy Gaming Group out of Saudi Arabia. I want to put this next to this story, which is Saudi Arabia set for Gamers 8, biggest esports and gaming event worldwide with $15 million prize pool on offer. 8 star-name international artists appearing across 8 weeks this summer. So it's going to run 8 weeks over the summer. It's going to be what they call the biggest esports and gaming event worldwide in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia. And it's hosted under the theme of Gamers 8, your portal to the next world. So there's going to be events, concerts, festivals, shows, tournaments, $15 million prize pool. And what they're saying is, and this is a quote from the chairman of the Saudi Esports Federation, says, with an estimated 23.5 million gamers across the country, almost every home in the kingdom has someone with a deep passion for gaming. This passion for gaming has long been a source of pride for Saudis. And they talk a bit about how it's part of Vision 2030 for Saudi Arabia. So I wanted to put those two next to each other. I'll add just a quick third story, which is a bit sillier, but Pizza Hut launching their first ever esports tournament in the Middle East, and people competing for $15,000. All the big esports teams in the Middle East are going to be competing, obviously much smaller dollars here, but I thought Pizza Hut's a big Western brand, so I thought that was interesting to add into the mix. So 3 stories here. Let me just get to this. Adam says, have to head out early this week. Have a great night all. Adam, thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. 3 stories here, all about Saudi Arabia's ambition in gaming. I want to open it up, guys, to some sort of just general discussion, but is Savvy Gaming Group / PIF not starting to feel a lot like Tencent here almost? Like, is this the Tencent playbook in your mind?
That was basically going to be my take. I mean, they're quickly becoming one of the bigger investors in the gaming space. You know, it's exactly almost the Tencent playbook. The only other company that I could think of that's even really close in terms of the investments and the scale is probably Animoca in Web3, where they sort of seem to just be, anytime you see a news story that this company got funded, they seem to be in the cap table. So yeah, I mean, it's another big one. I'm interested to continue to see how they sort of tie all these things together, because we've talked a lot about how these are minority stakes. They're clearly not, they don't have control. Obviously, when you give someone $1 billion, that's going to come with some sort of strings attached to it. So I want to see how they end up exerting their influence and kind of piecing some of these companies together, not in a formal sense, but like in a almost like, what's the term in South Korea, like the Kai ball, like where it's like, okay, you know, maybe I'm thinking about this from a Web3 angle. Like we always talk about interoperability, how it's impossible because no companies are going to want to work with each other. Well, turns out if you have maybe a common investor that's pushing this, maybe that's one way to get games from Embracer to connect with Nintendo. And maybe that's an extreme example. But if someone ends up owning 10-15% of each of these companies, they can exert a lot of influence and sort of make some of these things happen that probably wouldn't otherwise.
So let me riff off of that, Jeff, and ask two questions to all of you. One is, do we believe Tencent extracted synergies across their investment portfolio? Because I think that, at least in my mind, is a bit of a question mark, right? Like, Tencent has definitely been massively successful because they made bets on gaming companies because gaming has grown, right? And so we could argue PIF here and Savvy Gaming Group going to be equally successful because we all believe gaming is going to continue to grow. But it's the synergies piece that I'm not sure Tencent did anything with, and I'm not sure here there will be anything to do. I would love a bit of conversation around that. And then second point is, like, do we believe that if we say Saudi Arabia is going to spend, PIF is going to spend, pick a number, $30 billion on gaming companies over the next 5 years, right? Is there a better play than buying big chunks of big developers like Nintendo or Embracer or ESL? Like, what would we give them as advice in your minds, guys? Like, what advice would you give PIF if you're looking at this, having seen what Tencent did and knowing that there's dollars that they're going to spend on gaming over the next 5 years? And curious to get chat's thoughts also, if you guys think they should be doing something else with the money. Jimmy?
Yeah, I'm just thinking through this because you threw a lot of questions at us, and all of them, I think, require quite a bit of thought to them. Low-hanging fruit first, I can't recall something that Tencent did where they said, hey, there's synergies here, you guys work together, the way you would as a startup getting 2 million from a Griffin or a Bitcraft and being paired up with other investments of theirs. I never saw that from Tencent. I could be wrong.
They tried it with Huya and Douyu, but it didn't succeed, if you remember.
And they also own several other streaming properties, though. I mean, that was just their first attempt, I thought. But don't they have a few? They had a few others that we had looked into and we had covered on the show. No, fair point. What I like about this, and Jeff spoke to it at the end of his analysis, was, and Tencent did this too, but one, PIF is not acquiring small stakes here, right? They're outright acquisitions, or they are 5 to 10 or even longer percent, percent ownership that the PIF is getting for these investments, which is enough weight to throw around in these conversations and enough weight to have a voice, I think. The difference here that I see really between the Saudis and Tencent, or just the thing I love the most about how the Saudis are approaching gaming, because we've been saying it for weeks now, every time we cover them, I think a lot of us really appreciate and see what they're doing, is, and you kind of hit on the last story with Pizza Hut, which was kind of funny. It's bringing Western culture, it's bringing pop culture, and it's taking it to the MENA region. Because right now there's a certain perspective, or, if you're from certain cultures that aren't, global, you might just be focused on what's going on in your country or in your region. And the Saudis are asserting themselves in gaming, and gaming transcends geography, as I was making the last argument with the Parisian story. And I think what they're doing is they're not only acquiring interest in companies like Nintendo or ESL, but then they're taking that property and bringing it to their region and saying, hey, we're actually a good host. We have a 23 million gamers here, and we have the ability to host events. And by the way, we're not, and the other question that you had, Paul, was why do the 30 billion over 5, or is there a better way? No, they're hitting it on its head. What are you going to do? Spend that money and start a company from scratch when you can just buy the next company that's already been doing it successfully and skip 2 to 5 years in the learning curve and in the process? So they're outspending, they're outperforming, they're bringing all the flash and all the lights and all the attention on them. And I think they're executing at a very high level, where I would just say to continue to do it. The biggest concern would be if they can continue to spend that way for 5 to 10 years. And that's the funniest part, because that's the least of their concerns, I think, is the ability to spend that kind of money. The harder part, I think, for a lot of people, execution, like you said, gaming is going to continue to go up. They're making good bets, and they have an attractive geographic region to bring events to. and they have the money to do it. I can't criticize this on any level.
Lindsay, your thoughts on this?
Oh man, you're gonna make me follow that? You asked like 12 questions and I've already forgotten 11 of them?
I can re-ask them.
Yeah, re-ask a question so I can answer it. So I don't have that many original thoughts.
What do you, well, let's try and get more specific here. Do you find, because I don't know if you noticed, but Saudi Arabia is doing something similar. I'll say similar on the traditional sports side with this live like golf league, where
That's been awesome.
they're luring the top players from the PGA Tour to go play on this Saudi-owned golf tournament, like golf league, essentially. And literally some of the best golfers in the world at the peaks of their career are jumping ship from the PGA Tour to go play in this tour. Is there a future around esports and gaming where you think it's not just about buying companies, but eventually they want to attract all the best talent? Like, what fast forward here 5 years, what do you think is the end result?
Okay, well, I'll just say, especially with the Live Golf League, clearly you can do anything you want when you have the funds to do so. And they certainly have the funds to do so. I find it very intriguing that they're going after the kind of gaming and esports side rather than the entertainment side as much, doing more league-based stuff, more tournament-based stuff than like, buying Twitch. Not that that's possible, but buying a Twitch-like company. So I certainly think that it's fascinating that they're going after the actual competitions. I think that because there's kind of a vacuum in the competition space for these high-level productions, I still feel like that. And Overwatch League has shown that there's still kind of a vacuum for really high-level productions and really, I don't know what the word is, but captivating leagues, I suppose, that them putting their money and weight behind it is something that's going to have a big impact. If I look 5 years down the line, it certainly seems like the Middle East is investing the most, even compared to China, which China has the benefit of already having the infrastructure, but the Middle East has the benefit of having the funds. So I can't say that everything is going to play out perfectly. And even like, I like using the example of the Live Golf League because I've been reading a lot about that. That might flop. It might just be that they pay a ton of people to come over, and then those people wind up leaving and coming back to the PGA. We don't actually know. That being said, like I said, there is a vacuum, particularly in the live event space. And if they're going after that and putting their money behind it, then yeah, the Middle East might be the place where all the best talent goes in a short time from now. We're already seeing massive amounts of people moving there from Western countries and all over. So obviously, oh my God, the fact that you always ask prediction questions just like hurts me because I'm such a like data person. What do you think's going to happen?
What do you think we do here, Lindsay? We do hot takes. We do
people come with
predictions.
afflictions.
But my hot take is like, oh, wait and see. I don't know. We'll see what pans out. It's like it's always like that. So,
but it's a super exciting podcast.
I know. My actual take is I do think that it's going to be successful because like money is the thing that they have in spades, and that's the thing that they're going to need. So they can basically keep, for better lack of words, like throwing shit at the wall until something sticks. And they can afford to keep doing that forever.
Do you think, and I guess I probably assume I know the answer to this already, given the money that they're spending in golf, should they be spending more money on esports? Or said differently, are you less impressed by the investment in esports because of the investment in golf? I mean, we're talking about literally probably well over $1 billion in this league.
Wow. So keep in mind, they're spending probably at least one order of magnitude more on esports than on golf, right? Just the Embracer investment was $1 billion. Just the ESL investment was another $1 billion. The Nintendo one was a few billion. I don't remember the exact number, right? Like there's way more money being spent on gaming and esports than golf. So I think if you're asking me, is all
so they've
right
got it right.
World,
so I guess I was wrong.
Everything's right in the world, if you ask me. But let me just, I think what is overlooked here, and I think is really smart, and is what Tencent has not done. And Tencent has been an incredible, and we've often lifted Tencent as the model of good, like corporate venture, almost like how to do M&A in the gaming space right. Like they've just made some incredible investments, some incredible acquisitions. It's been hard to fault Tencent on so many fronts. I think the layer here that Savvy Gaming Group, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, PIF adds to that, because they have the money, they have the smarts to make these investments, is this like community layer that I think is critical for success in gaming in any region, in any country, in any, you know, in any sphere we're talking about, where they're not only buying these companies, they're not only investing in these companies, but that Games 8 festival, right, where now they're activating their local population. They know that those 23 million players can be the foundation for a much, much larger industry and a much larger piece of control of the gaming pie if they get them involved and if they get them active. And I think that like grassroots kind of community involvement, taking the investment stuff and partnering with stuff at the local level makes just so much sense, right? If you're going to buy ESL and Face It, might as well hold an 8-week gaming festival, right? Like that feels like the most obvious move, if nothing else. And so I like that they're doing that. And I didn't see that from Tencent. Maybe I'm not as close to Tencent, but I didn't see it from Tencent in the way I'm seeing it here. Guys, I want to move on. We got to get to our lightning round because we have a bunch of stories. Before we do, I just want to say this live stream is very generously sponsored by YouGov. They've been tremendous supporters of the Business of Esports and our weekly news show. YouGov produces the absolute best data on gamers, games, esports fans around the world. If you're even thinking about reaching the gaming audience, if it's a thought in your mind, you need to be talking to YouGov first. They produce what they call living data. So it's data that's constantly being updated. It makes it incredibly actionable. So if you want to tap into this lucrative audience, you want to reach gamers, you want to understand what they're all about, you really need to be talking to YouGov first. I'm going to put a link in the chat. Go check it out. We have some free content there. It's yougov.com/BOE. Definitely click on that. Make sure, pause whatever you're doing. Go click on that. Go show YouGov some love. And if you want to get in touch with them directly, you can reach out to any of us, to myself, to Jimmy, Lindsay, Jeff. Any of us are happy to put you in touch with YouGov. We really appreciate it, guys. And we really appreciate YouGov. So yougov.com/BOE to learn more or to see more. All right, guys, we got to get to everyone's favorite segment here. We have a handful of stories here to do. The lightning round starts now. All right, guys, for those of you who are new, this is how this works. I'm going to present a story. I'm going to try and do it very quickly. Each person, Jimmy, Jeff, and Lindsay, I'm going to go around to you one at a time. You'll have 30 seconds to give your hot take, your opinion on this story. I unfortunately don't have my soundboard, so usually there's a bell that you hear at the end of those 30 seconds, but it's just going to be me making a noise or something. And if you're in the chat and you have an opinion as well, you got to be quick on it. It's a lightning round. I will try and get to your comment on each story. I'll use it for my time. So let's start, guys, with I promised an Apple story. I'm going to start with an Apple story. And this is iOS 16, which is the latest version of iOS, which powers iPhones, announced at the Worldwide Developers Conference for Apple. And the headline here, iOS 16 supports Nintendo's Joy-Cons, reports say. You might soon be able to use Nintendo's controllers on your Apple device. I mean, there's not much more to say than that. Jimmy, let's start with you.
I don't even like using the Joy-Con on my Switch. Lindsay is going to fall out of her chair. I bought a separate controller and I prefer it. So cool, I guess, if it means that the one that Apple makes is also on the way, but I'm more interested in that. And I'm going to keep using my Razer Kishi until further notice.
Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a game changer until Nintendo puts all of their content onto, the iPhone, which right now, obviously, they don't. So if that was the story, then that would be pretty monumental. Right now, it's just a little bit of hardware compatibility, which sure, I guess maybe saves you if you don't want to buy something else and you really want to have a controller on your phone. Cool.
Lindsay?
Yeah, this is definitely very novelty and very fun. That being said, I still think probably for anyone who's seriously gaming, they're gonna want like Razer Kishi devices. I know a lot of parents who regularly put their phones in front of their kids to let them play games. Maybe it would be like kind of fun for them. But Jimmy, you're gonna fall out of your chair because I actually use a regular controller when playing the Switch too. So this just seems kind of novel and fun, and hopefully it wasn't that hard. I don't think much of it.
Am I a weakling by saying that I hate having to hold up my phone or iPad while I'm playing? Like, I just find it too heavy and too cumbersome.
Yes,
And
you're
so, like,
weak.
while I think the Kishi's cool, it's like I don't want to have to hold this. I find even the Switch too heavy. And so anything attached, this makes it maybe seem a little bit better because you could just hold up these light Joy-Cons, but the Joy-Cons are kind of bad controllers also. Not that exciting, but cool to see Apple and Nintendo doing something together. Maybe the start of bigger things to come. That's what I'll leave it at. All right, guys, let's talk about Valorant. Valorant in the news here. Luminosity Gaming leaves Valorant. So Luminosity Gaming is the esports team owned by Enthusiast Gaming. And the quote here, it says, "We look forward to Riot's upcoming structure for 2023, and we do not rule out the opportunity to participate in Valorant esports again down the road." So they're pulling away from competitive Valorant. Obviously they're letting go of their lineup, and they're saying we may revisit it. Now, we've talked about the restructuring that Valorant, or the structure that Valorant is launching. Luminosity not going to be a part of that. Bad sign for Valorant, guys, or like, what do you read into this? Lindsay, start with you.
Shit. I don't read. I don't have a good take for this. I mean, Enthusiast is going through some things. Valorant is going through some things with Luminosity now. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that this is a bad sign for Valorant. They're still in the early stages of building their league, so I would expect some teams to come in and out. I feel like it's more of a I just feel bad for Enthusiast. I feel like things have happened since that one investor called for the CEO to resign. And I don't know, it just seems like there's a bit of shaking up going on there that makes me more nervous for them than it does for the state of Valorant esports, I guess.
Jeff?
Yeah, I actually agree with Lindsay's take there. I think this probably says more about the state of Enthusiast and kind of their investments into more esports teams than it does about anything we should read into about Valorant and the league being not viable. I think Enthusiast is under pressure. The management team's under pressure to probably get the profitability with the way the market is and the activist shareholders. So they probably looked at this as a league that's still in its infancy and maybe isn't worth putting in the investment now, despite the fact that it could be worthwhile down the road on making kind of a short-term shareholder decision.
Jimmy?
Absolutely terrible move by Luminosity. This is one of the hottest games out right now. This new structure to shake things up, they have a chance to dominate the fan base, dominate the audience, make a big splash in this league. I like Jeff and Lindsay's takes because it reminds me of when 100 Thieves pulled out of Call of Duty because they didn't want to pay the outrageous franchise fee, only to come back a year later after they had gotten the funding, and can only speculate as to what their options or abilities are that's preventing them from taking advantage of this. But if Riot comes out with something, you jump on it is kind of the name of the game for the last 5-7 years. So I just think this is a big misstep.
Yeah, my quick take on it is I'm sort of with Jeff on this one. I think it's Enthusiasts being under the gun, and they dump the asset that they think is the least performing, and this sort of fits with comments I made in a Digiday article that I'll post in the chat here, and some of the chats where I think a lot of these esports teams orgs are struggling. Right, it's no surprise, and a game like Valorant's relatively niche still, and Enthusiast under the gun. I think this is the result. So I'm with Jeff on that one. Jimmy, this one's going to be close to you, so we'll start with you on this one. And this is XSET in the news. It says Las Vegas's first ever gaming cabanas let clubbers compete while they party. The innovative gaming experience was produced by XSET, a fast-growing esports org and lifestyle brand. So at Dre's Beach Club in Las Vegas, they have cabanas where you can actually play video games. So they have gaming consoles, large screen TVs, state-of-the-art sound systems, all in the cabana. There's a photo here. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching it live here, you can see this, what the cabana looks like. Very much Las Vegas Club cabana with consoles and video games. Jimmy, this is you're a little biased on this one, but your thoughts?
So this is obviously one of mine because the XSET, great event. It was super successful. Lil Wayne was one of the performers. Pretty cool. Personally, I just don't like gaming or can't see the appeal of gaming at a loud party where I can't hear the game audio or where everyone's watching me. But I've seen so many TikToks and so many Instagram videos of people that are playing Fortnite and winning in front of a party that just goes wild when you do well because it's something to watch and something to do. I might be aged out of this one. And so I'm hoping that our pulse or our temperature read on gaming culture and on youth culture is greater than my own personal one. So I am biased. It's not for me, but it has my full support.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'd always been somewhat bearish on this. I think, Jimmy, you actually just brought up an interesting scenario that maybe I hadn't really thought about, how it's not necessarily all about the person playing the game. It could actually be pretty entertaining for the community, like the crowd and the friend group watching the person playing. So maybe that does add a little bit to it where it's just part of the atmosphere. But in general, I just don't see a lot of like enthusiasm for people to pay a lot of money to go to a nightclub and then sit in a corner and play video games. Like it's not really what you do when you go to a night. Like that's not why you're at the nightclub. Could it do well for like niche events, little bachelor parties, maybe that go during the day and it's a little quieter, so they play a little Madden or Valorant or Fortnite? Sure, it could, but like I don't think this is going to change, the nightclub world or the esports world or the gaming world. But it's a cool little collaboration.
Lindsay?
Okay, I heartily disagree with you. And again, I don't know when Jeff became an expert on nightclub, considering his favorite activities to like go to Mastro's, order 2 butter cakes, and be in bed by 10 p.m. Anyways, what I think this is actually really cool because I think it's awesome marketing. And I think in a world where especially Dre's nightclub is a huge kind of influencer type of playground, adding more tech and adding things in where people can catch moments to share on social media is going to be huge. I think that this is not an experience where people who are serious gamers are going to go, but I think what people are going to do is go out and be like, look at this cool thing I did, and share it on social media, and the next person's going to hop in and do the same thing. I don't think this is going to like be massive or be a reason why people go to Vegas or anything like that. But whenever nightclubs or things like that can add these features, we've seen the photo walls get added. We've seen the drinks on fire get added. Like these are just things that simply that people can post and talk about and feel like they're really cool doing it. And I think this is another example of that. So for that reason, I think it's going to be really successful.
But what is success in this case? Right? Like who
people
wins
talking
here?
about it, sharing it, getting people in to do it. Like I said, I mean, this is the same reason why people pay to get into like different parties in Las Vegas. Like you don't just walk into Dre's for free. You pay because there's something in there that you want to see, something that you want to do, whatever it might be. You want to post the picture, you want to create the outfit, like you want to do the whole Vegas experience. I think for a large subset of people like this, that's what this is going to do.
I need my buzzer.
Jeff has to follow up. That's not my fault.
I'm with Lindsay on this one. I'll tell you, I wanted to hate this. Every fiber of my being wanted to hate this. Like, I want to be in my basement with the lights off, the $1,000 gaming headset, the custom gaming PC, my whole setup, the screens, right? Like that's gaming to me. That's how I game. And so I wanted to hate this, but then I thought about it on the flip side, and it's like, if someone invited me to Dre's nightclub, if Lindsay said, hey, Paul, we're in Vegas for some conference, let's go to Dre's nightclub tonight, right? My immediate answer would normally be no, right? Like I have no interest in nightclubs whatsoever. I don't want to drink. I don't want to dance. I don't want to do any of this, right? Like none of this is appealing to me. And I know I'm not alone in this. But tell me, hey, we're going to sit in a cabana. They're going to serve you food and drinks, and you get to play video games. And I don't know. All of a sudden, I have a reason to go. I think it's maybe the only time I would ever agree to go to a nightclub. Literally the only time. If someone said, hey, you can play video games in the corner and not be bothered, I kind of love the idea. And so it opens up nightclubs, I think, to a whole new audience, and it opens that audience up to nightclubs. And I think people, like a lot of people, I know a lot of men go to nightclubs to meet women. I don't know. There may be a subset of women who start going to these nightclubs and are impressed by, instead of how a guy is dressed or his dance moves, by how well he plays, Apex on Xbox. I don't know. I kind of like that world.
That's the world I want to live in.
Right, yeah, this is a move in the right direction. So anyways, let me get to these comments here. Angela says, I like it too, Lindsay. Clinton Sparks' ideas turn to gold. We're all fans of Clinton, obviously. Yes, moments. Agreed. Chris says, great play for gaming normalization versus growing the market via an esports arena. I mean, Chris, I think at least I agree with that. I think Lindsay agreed with that also, that and the esports arenas are being done to death, right? Something different's new. Lucas says, I don't know, Paul, sounds like you're afraid of cranking 90s in a Fortnite solo game at the bar. No, I'm saying this is the total appeal. I can show off my gaming superiority, right? I can. This is exactly why I love this. That it's a public forum for me to show off to a crowd of people who would not normally care about gaming just how much better I am than them. All right, guys, let's move on. We got one last story here, and we're going to end on this story. It's a bit of a silly one. It's Razer in the news here, but I like covering Razer stuff. And the headline here is, Razer partners with Tumi for esports-inspired bags. We talk a lot on this show about furniture like chairs and things like that. This is a luxury luggage brand or bag brand, backpacks, luggage, etc. Tumi partnering with Razer to make a sling bag, a backpack, and a carry-on luggage, all in like black and Razer green, but it's all done by Tumi, which is a high-end luggage producer. And they have USB-C ports for charging and stuff like that. So very quickly, guys, Jimmy, start with you. You love this. You hate this.
I wanted to love it. I use Tumi luggage. All my luggage is Tumi. It's just what I grew up with and what I know. And I love Razer as well. But the price points are ridiculous. Like, these are way overpriced compared to Tumi's regular goods. So even though I would use the luggage, the sling, the backpack, I'm just not going to do it because Tumi's already an expensive luxury brand. And why do they have to upsell me because I like video games? Let's just pass. Sorry, I wanted to, but I'm passing. Yeah.
There's only 1,337 units being made because that spells leet. It's old kind of gaming meme. Jeff?
I mean, the limited edition is cool. They should sell an NFT with it, really get people going. But I don't know. This is not for me. I don't do Tumi. I don't know what I do, but it works. It doesn't have a brand name.
Lindsay?
Jeff orders his luggage off Instagram ads. Let's be clear.
Lindsay's just coming at me the whole episode.
It's Swedish luggage.
I know.
Swedish luggage.
Vacation Lindsay is really on it with Jeff. No, I know. I don't really find this interesting at all. Usually Razer does like cool and innovative things. Jimmy's right. Tumi does make really nice luggage. Razer makes really nice gaming stuff. I'm not surprised that they together made a nice gaming luggage thing, but I'm glad that they just did this limited edition. This seems like just something that someone wanted to do, and it's probably, I would think it's still going to sell decently, but it's just not fair. It's not that exciting to me.
Yeah, the challenge for me is maybe the mismatch. And this is obviously what Razer was going for, right? They partner with Tumi because they want to take the Razer brand more upscale. They want consumers to think of Razer as a luxury brand. So they partner with a luxury brand. The problem is, as a Tumi buyer, right, part of the reason you buy and spend a lot of money on Tumi luggage is you want other people to be like, oh, like you want other people to notice your, $2,000 luggage. And if you slap Razer branding all over it, like, I don't know if it has the same luxury recognition. And so I don't know how many Tumi buyers are going to be all over this. And I think it's probably too overpriced for the Razer buyers. And so it feels a little no man's land, even though I love it. Like I actually really love, I even love the color scheme, and I would probably buy it. So,
yeah,
but that's just me. All right, guys, that wraps up this week's lightning round. guys, I want to say a couple of things. First, definitely tune into this week's podcast. Great episode. Make sure you're watching all the office hours with the professor. William has been doing an amazing job. If you haven't watched that series yet, it's a lot of fun. He dives into one topic, does a deep dive on one topic. It's a lot of fun. And subscribe to Business of Esports everywhere, on TikTok, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Our YouTube has been growing like crazy, and so we appreciate that. So keep it up. Keep sharing our content. We really appreciate it. Thank you all to everyone who came, who showed up, who commented. All of you guys, we really appreciate you doing that. Bring your friends, bring your colleagues next time. We do this because we love doing it with you guys. I mean, without you, there'd be almost no reason to do this. Jimmy, thank you as always. Lindsay, thank you. Jeff, thank you. Don't forget, guys, the most important thing, the future is fun. We'll see you guys next week.